Branding isn't just a logo, it's a mindset. A holistic approach shaping identities, experiences, and leadership at every level. Welcome to BrandsTalk with your host, Brigitte Berkowski, where excellence meets purpose. We share insights and lessons to inspire and elevate. Let's dive in. Today, I'm honored to welcome a woman who quite literally architects relationships. Susan K. Younger, known as the Relationship Architect, is a distinguished thought leader within the C-Suite network. Her professional path is anything but linear, and that is precisely what makes her work so powerful. With a background spanning architecture, retail management, consulting, structural integration, and personality science, Susan integrates environments of space, body, and belief. Since 2015, she has worked with the bank methodology and has incorporated AI-powered personality insights through Codebreaker Technologies since 2019. Bridging human understanding with intelligent tools. She brings together high-tech and high-touch in a way that feels rare and deeply needed. Susan helps leaders navigate complexity, not by reacting to chaos, but by strengthening awareness, communication, and values-based connection. She transforms everyday conversations into pivotal moments of alignment. And now she's launching something bold and visionary, Humanitarianism, a movement grounded in human-centered leadership and conscious engagement. Susan, welcome. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Thank you, Bridget. I am thrilled to be with you.
I'm so thrilled to have my dear friend on my show today. It's the second time to have you. I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago. I had you the
Been a
first
while.
time. It's been a while, and there has been so much going on in your life, and I would love to dive deep into today. Susan, you have worked in architecture. You built retail spaces, integrated structural bodywork, and also applied personality science. So your design environments physically, emotionally, but also relationally. So in that sense, how do the environments we create, both external but also internal, consciously and unconsciously, shape who we become as a leader?
You know, the thing that I think most people don't look at is that a lot of times they're dreaming about what they wish their environment was, and they fail to make it what their environment can be to support them. I can remember renting properties, and people would say, "Why would you spend time, asking about either whether it was doing something internal or external to a space?" And I said, because it's my home. It's what supports me. It's what creates that cocoon for my life. And so the environments that we spend our time in create an energy around us. And if we do not create something that's a respectful environment to live and work in, we are disrespectful of ourselves.
I think it's also an act of self-care. And that also comes from a
Absolutely.
perspective of personal branding, right? Because I want to
Yes.
feel good. I want to be in my best version. I want to have presence. And it's fed by the environment I'm living in. As you say, the cocoon, and especially during COVID, we really understood how important it is to feel good, to feel protected in our
Yeah.
home. And mostly the home was also the place where we worked. So that's really important for self-care and for expressing of who we are. And it's just, it brings us into a totally different energy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would like
And
to continue. Yeah, please go ahead,
I
Susan.
was going to say, and my family moved a lot when I was young, and so as mom and dad would look at homes and talk about what they liked and disliked, I was already sketching for them like an idea about what would be that perfect space to live. And my mom didn't save those and later said, geez, I wish I would, because as a child in grade school, some of your sketches were rather humorous, but you knew what you were trying to say. So you start to showcase who you are in ways very early on without even recognizing that it's part of identifying your core and the part of you that will start to either shine or feel neglected if you do not develop it in a way that allows it to grow.
Also, your journey, of course, had an impact. It made you who you are today. And nowadays, in addition to your own experience, your own journey, your own story, we now are living in a time of accelerated complexity, and you're working within it and with it. It's AI, it's global instability, it's polarization. And that demands a big portion of self awareness to find ourselves in that complexity. So, why is self awareness no longer an option? Because there is people out there, they just not go there. And it's not an option anymore, but really foundational for leadership nowadays.
I think for years it was like, don't bring anything personal to work, is forgetting that you're bringing personal to work, whether you are trying to hide it or whether you are really understanding it. And when you truly understand who you are at your core, you know what your needs are to do your best. You also know what your gifts are to give your best. And when you can address those things internally for yourself, it helps you to understand what supports you, and it also helps you to understand what challenges you the most, so that you then know how to even ask the questions if no one else is asking them. And when you start to see those things in yourself, it makes it that much easier to take that next step of seeing it in others and recognizing what their gifts are, what their challenges are, that you can either be support of or understand why it is not necessarily a perfect match for you. I think frequently we look at somebody who is successful and we think, I want to be like them, instead of looking at them and saying, wow, they have gifts I don't have. I don't need to be like them, but I need to recognize, what do they bring to my life that completes a missing component for me? Or what do I have that in our shared work together, we create that synergy that creates the significance that we want to create in work or life?
Yeah, in that regard, self-awareness is often discussed as a concept, but rarely as a practice. So now when it comes to practicing it, what experience in your own life have deepened your self-awareness the most? Is there anything that you would like to share where there was a pivotal moment that challenged you to see yourself differently, in a different light?
So many. I mean, being a gal in the 60s that knew she wanted to do architecture, that was not a path that many were taking. I could have taken everyone that challenged and said, well, what's your backup plan? But instead, I looked at it as, well, if they think that's not normal, what do I need to do to make sure it is normal for me? I have that understanding of where the difficulties might be, where you need to make certain steps early in order to make sure your engagement is there. I I registered for college as a junior because I knew I wanted to get into an architecture program that was the only one in the state, what I could afford and where it was available. So you make earlier steps sometimes because you are knowing a path you want to take. Now, I could have gotten there and discovered it wasn't for me, and then realized it was time to make a change. Part of that self awareness is sometimes knowing when to say, no, I've explored this, time to let it go, or yes, I love this, time to move forward. And I've had both of those because when working in an incredibly tumultuous environment in retail in the 80s and 90s when there were a lot of takeovers, there were a lot of things really changing rapidly. We didn't have the full depth of computer stuff. You had to really suss things out. And I would be sent on marketing trips to find, products and materials to use in our stores and have to really look at things and go, can I do this? How do I do this? How do I pull the right people together around me? How do I find the resources? And if you're not strong enough in understanding where you need assistance from others, those things become difficult to achieve. Um, and and I can remember walking down the street in New York City on one of those trips and literally in my early 30s going, you need to really, really own what is it about this experience that makes you love this so much? What about it is challenging to you? And what about it makes you go, remember this because you will never have an experience like this again? And having that awareness in the moment of something that's good and still putting you outside your comfort zone to do something helps you to go, how do I find that when I reach some point that isn't feeding me that same sort of positivity? Later on in that same position, having successfully opened two brand new stores on the same day, been involved in it from the first pen to paper at that point to having it completed, standing outside the one building and thinking this is like birthing a child. I am now giving the building and the store to the team that is going to run this. It will no longer be part of me. And having to understand the difference between who I am, what I had created, what I had done with a team, and what I was releasing because it was no longer mine to hold. And you start to understand what the difference is between you and maybe the position or the product or the project. And you no longer hold your identity in some of those components, but what if those components really helped you to feel at your best, gave you the anchoring of, I can do this, I can take on another challenge that maybe I haven't even thought about. But if I got through all the difficult situations in this circumstance, how can I apply those same, be they tenacity, be they the skills, be they ability to research and find those that will help you do it and do it in a really cooperative and successful way for all, not about using them and abusing them, but about engaging them and having them feel that it's a success for them as well.
So beautiful. Susan, I see you as someone who really has embodied a growth mindset. You have put yourself throughout your years out of the comfort zone into something, something new. You were embracing and living something that is just attracting new challenges, and the way of how you master that, yeah, speaks for you. So I really adore you for that. It's just amazing
Thank
to,
you.
yeah, also be in your space to see what is possible. And over the years, you also have witnessed, the change, the world that has
Mm-mm.
increasingly embraced also technology. And you have been now working with scientifically validated personality science and AI tools. Yet, your work is still deeply human. And this is so beautiful how you bring it all together. So, why is the human dimension of leadership more critical than ever?
When you look around the world right now, you see the disassociation of people to who they are, the dream of what could be magic to them because they are not willing to embrace those sides of themselves that they may be looked down upon. And instead of learning what the power is in that piece of themselves that they are dismissing, they are creating these imaginary, whether you call it an agent or an avatar or a imaginary, they put these glasses on and they uh, get into some fantasy piece where they can only see themselves as something they know in their heart they are not. It leads to that whole thing of loneliness that we see. We see people turning to hating things instead of embracing things, instead of seeing the difference as a component of a puzzle piece that's missing from their life that somebody else can contribute to their life. When we look at how each of us has a different gift and ability to engage, those conversations that share the wisdom that somebody brings from an experience we will never ever have helps us to understand where there are issues in the world that need to be addressed because we may have benefited from having, these first world issues of, oh geez, I just didn't get an extra coffee today, or whatever it is that makes us feel I didn't get to have a house that has ideal surfaces. And you start to go, wait, what do I have around me that I can love and embrace? What do I have that gives me joy? And I think that finding joy in every day, finding those things that excite us, that give us awe, allow us to look at something and go, wow, I never even thought about that. And I can learn from that. I can share what I've experienced and I can in a way gain a wisdom about life and living through somebody else's experiences. And then working together, you start to see the benefits of everybody's contribution.
Yeah, so since you speak about it, that there needs to be daily joy and also gratitude, not only just as a soft idea, but it can also be a leadership practice. How do you integrate gratitude and also have this awareness of it? How can that influence performance, clarity, and resilience? How do you do that? How do you integrate that into your everyday life, also as a leader?
I think it is that willingness to allow people to see you having maybe not fun at what you're doing, but the enjoyment of the creation in what you're doing, the enjoyment of what you're doing in life. Is it while you're taking a walk, you are not just on a phone call or doing listening to some podcast, but you're actually embracing the environment you're in each day, recognizing, is there something blooming? Is there construction around you that stimulates your thoughts of like, wow, look at this new thing that I haven't seen? Are you seeing people having fun? Are you seeing things that are happening that allow you to realize what is in the community around you that might be something you are so into your own zeitgeist in a sense that you're failing to recognize how you become part of the community? Having your dogs, having a yard that you look out on, having a view where you can watch nature change. I can get excitement watching a couple of birds out in the yard, having a conversation about who's going to get that little bit of seed, or the joy of watching a mama bird feed the baby bird, or just anything in life that allows you to be aware of what's happening, watching a sunset, watching a sunrise, taking those moments to reflect on what good. I mean, there's a practice you can have that's a gratitude journal where you write this stuff in, or even to just mentally make a list before you go to bed of what are you grateful for that happened that day. That gratitude may be, I'm just glad I got through the day. It was a tough one, but here I am on the end of it. And when you match those gratitudes with the desires of what you want the next day to be, or what you want the next month to be, or the goal in life that you are reaching for, you have the ability to tie that positive energy to a dream. And when you tie those things together, for me, doing that before bed, I always say it allows the subconscious to work on those positive approachments and start my next day having filtered through this stuff. I jokingly will say, I can turn something over to the subconscious. It does not need to tell me what it did overnight so that I can wake up and take what I can do consciously without the garbage. You know, let it be released in the subconscious overnight. And and when you wake up in the morning, some people are waking up with full energy, ready to rock it and roll it. Let them go do that. Everybody that needs that quiet time to really center themselves and go, how do I feel today? What do I need to do? Finding your own rhythm. I think we hear from various people, do it my way because this is how I found success. What we need to do is say, find your way and understand where your cycle of life is, whether it's a daily cycle that your high energy is in the morning, is it in the middle of the day, or is it in the evening? And recognize what supports you to do the best of yourself in those time frames. Also recognize those environments. Are you somebody who really gets excited and is enthralled with a bustling room with lots of people in it? Or are you more, excited in a one-to-one conversation? Understanding how you absorb the energy, how you feel after you've been in that energy, and what you need to do to integrate that energy becomes an understanding of how you create the cycle of your day, how you create the cycle of your work, how you create the cycle of your life. I know some people who really need that morning quiet time alone. And I know some people who really need to get out and get to the gym and be in a, pump it and making things happen for them to feel the drive for the day. Each of those is a wonderful thing when it's what works for you. But when you push yourself to do it because everyone else is, you can see the people that are there huffing and grinding and not happy to be in that environment. And you're sort of like, you're pulling this down from you're not embracing what life needs to give you.
So beautiful. Yeah, we need to allow ourselves to find our own way in all of that. And it's not
Yeah.
an outside perspective, it's really turning the look inwards. It's about figuring out what we want and who do I want to be and who do I want to become. And what I loved so much is you said also with the gratitude journaling, what we are grateful for, what happened, and but also building the future with it. It's like, I'm so grateful for a wonderful day that is starting and for accomplishing this and
Right.
accomplishing that. And for me, this morning, I need the me time in the morning, the quiet time, and then I'm pumping at the gym. So I need both. But in the morning, I was
Yes,
like,
exactly.
I I want this beautiful, thoughtful, meaningful, deep, and joyful conversation with Susan. And there is so much, so
And
many nuggets of wisdom you are just pulling off here. It's so fantastic. So thank you.
the
This
other bit of that for me is I can have one day where I really need to get up and get out the door quick. Like yesterday was a day for meetings. I left the house at 6:20. So I didn't have a reason to wake up at 4 to give myself that same period of respectful meditation or anything like that. However, what I did do is at the end of the day, because I was in meetings early working and then a whole big networking event, I had a quiet dinner with a couple of friends that allowed us to be grateful for what the day was, allowed us to giggle and enjoy each other and let the energy of a big busy thing kind of subdue to the point where we could go home and be ready to get a good night's sleep. I think you forget sometimes what revs you up and what then leaves you at the end of a day going, wait a minute, I can't even slow down to think. Understanding where you need to do that. Earlier, when I was married and the kids I had stepchildren that had babies. I kind of went from single to married to mother and grandmother in a very short period of time. And we would babysit the little ones, and the kids would come home and go, how did you get them to bed? And I said, well, we didn't have rock music playing during dinner. We had a more subdued thing. We lowered the light level. We did the stories. You set up the energy for somebody to wind their day down, not to keep winding it up. And frequently, we are so in a world of push, push, push. You get to the point where you get to bed and you can't turn off the engine in your brain. You can't turn down the body energy because it's all revved up. You've got to understand how much time do you need to unwind as well as how much time do you need to wind up. And understanding that for each of us is such a unique gift that we frequently try to create as a mimic of somebody instead of a creation of our own. And that's where I love what you do about really becoming who are you and understanding it from that branding side as well as from the integration of body, mind, and soul.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, there, as you say, it's situational. Sometimes you don't have much time unless you get up even 1 hour earlier, like at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
But sometimes you
yeah,
need to rush
yeah.
out. And then you have these wonderful, dinners with your girls, with your friends, and you enjoy that. But what is really important that we all need to know, how can I wind down? How can I ground myself again and put myself into alignment? And I think there are different ways of doing that. It's very personal, but knowing how to do that and when, and kind of draw that into my life in the here and now, I think is very, very important. Yeah, so thank you
And
so
those
much,
can be the
Susan. Yeah.
gratitudes at night that
Yeah.
it may be that you're grateful for the fact that I had a horrific experience. What did I learn from that? Not what did it do to me? What what have I learned about myself that I need to either protect? What do I need to armor up for in some instances? Or what do I need to recognize so that I don't armor up and can truly experience it and be resilient to what I need to do to create a better environment for that the next time.
Mhm.
Sometimes the awareness of what are we doing to create the chaos instead of assuming that everyone else is creating it. Sometimes we are the
Exactly.
chaos.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly, exactly. So it's knowing when we hit the pause button. Yeah, either it's a meditation, it's a journaling, or whatsoever that we can do in order to do so. And you also mentioned something right now, and I want to come back to that because it's the reflection of who we are and what kind of learnings we took away from a certain challenge that we had to overcome. Because you're also emphasizing the power of understanding both our gifts, yeah, in the gratitude journal, and our limitation that is also for me in my gratitude
Yeah,
journal, because it is limitation. When I reflect on that, there is a learning, is a hidden gift in it. So we have these gifts that are
absolutely.
obvious, and there are the gifts that are hidden. So why is embracing our limitations just as powerful as celebrating our strength, in your opinion, Susan?
For me, sometimes it's that letting go of that as an imperfection and understanding that you are never everything to everyone or even everything to yourself. There are things you need to have from outside of yourself to understand that I am never going to be. I mean, and the awareness of this came very early for me as not being a fast typer. We actually, when I was in school, actually took a typing class. And I was like,
Yep.
well, I'm never going to be anybody's admin assistant because I think I was typing 37 words a minute while others were like zipping along. And I never ever until I was in my 40s had somebody say, "Oh, you're dyslexic, aren't you?" I'd never heard the term because it wasn't something that in my youth was pointed out in that way. I was a slow reader, but I had good comprehension. I used the advantage of comprehension to apply ideas I learned instead of being a rapid reader who glazed over things but didn't engage with the information I had read. So that ability to learn became a gift that came out of things that were a shortcoming. but it also helped me to understand why I was focused on the math and the geometry and the creation of recognizing, that ability to recognize shapes and the ability to think in 3D that would help me have the architectural career that I so wanted. Now, thankfully, having had to endure typing allowed me, once the computer came along, to be able to work the keyboard and start to do drawings on the computer and step into the technology. But I can remember the challenges in the 90s when I was directing teams doing projects. I wasn't at the computer drawing. I was still doing hand sketches to hand off for somebody else to do something. And in business, they said, well, let's integrate that group of people into using it on the computer. And some of the tech guys are like, they can't do that. They don't think that way. And a week later, this guy who had said none of us could do that walked by my desk and I'm doing the computer drawing. And he goes, you could figure that out already? And, because to him, that was a skill I would never have because he didn't see me as thinking in the logical, technical way that he did about things. What he didn't understand, for me, it was just a different tool to do things that I had done by hand. And now I didn't have to worry about how many times I erased it because I could recopy and reshape and and so you take those skills from a different practice and apply it to a new system. You don't hold on to that old way of doing as, oh, the only way. I think the thing I miss most about that is I could pull out a set of drawings that were done when I first was working in a design office of department stores in the mid 70s, like in late 70s. And I could tell you who had drawn it because I recognized their hand. I recognized their line work. I recognized their lettering because we hand wrote everything in the thing. I could pull it out and say, Ray did this set of drawings. That's Billy's work. You
Seems
had
it's
that much attention to detail in who was doing it and how beautifully they drew. That sort of stuff to me is what's missing. And that level of creativity is what I feel we still need to embrace, and why that whole thing of how do you create things? Yes, AI can do amazing things, but there's still so much that the human puts into it. You can see the things in AI that are just the pump it and not really have control over it. And then you can see the things that were human directed that allowed it to use the tool in a way that really expands what the tool can do for you and create the things that would maybe have taken you, uh, you know, days and months to create. Now you can create in a shorter time frame. So hopefully we can use it to unleash the better parts of human instead of looking at it as squelching the human creativity.
Yeah, hopefully. But it's also interesting with technology, it took away that reading between the lines because you could read who was that, who created that. This is gone now,
Yeah.
but I'm sure there will be other things coming where we can put in our human spirit and energy again, what you are doing. And I would like to kind of use that as a gateway into the next question because you're so rich in experience and it's so diverse, from architecture, as we mentioned, to bodywork, to retail design, personality science, executive advisory. And there is something you have pivoted into. You're most excited about something you bring forward now. It's the launching of humanitarianism. What does
Yeah.
it mean to be a humanitarian and why does the world need this now?
What I in 2025, a lot of us will pick a word for the year. And I had chosen humanitarianism because I really, with what I do with bank, it's all about really understanding ourselves and understanding others. So that it's about making people matter. And in doing so, I thought humanitarianism is how we do that. And as I looked at more things, what I recognized is you cannot open any site about humanitarian work without seeing pictures of devastation, of crushing humanity, not lifting humanity. And I thought, how can we create a twist on this? And what ended up coming up to me is the whole concept of when you have that self-awareness, when you understand who you are, it allows you to understand what those gifts are you really have to share, what support you need. Instead of trying to learn it and do it yourself, how do you find the right tools, the right community, the right partners in business and in life to build that piece that is so wonderful when it's all interlocking and coming together beautifully? So I thought, how can I change humanitarianism into a concept that allows us to build it from the ground up and possibly, just possibly, create those environments where there is less devastation, less, yes, there's still going to be, tornadoes and hurricanes and tsunamis and things in life, fires. Those sort of things are not going to go away. The world is still going to experience traumatic events. But maybe if we understand who we are as a humanitarian, and who is that standing beside us, we could lock arms together and create a world where there is less reason for us to be the cause of the devastation and be the cause of the creation of a humanitarian world that gives back to each other and takes care of ourselves.
So beautiful. I mean, if we were fully embracing that in organizations and communities, that would happen. Is there anything that comes to mind what you think would be fundamentally different about how we work, lead, and live? Is there anything else that you think, yes, if we fully embrace
I,
that?
I I think you can look at what Brene Brown has done in terms of making vulnerability something that
Hmm.
is no longer looked at as a disgrace to express. You can look at the fact that it is no longer looking at just cut out the bottom, that kind of stomping down within business instead of lifting up. Those kind of things that help you to grow others around you to be their best so that we are able to embrace the best in each one of us, so that we are able to help somebody find what it is that is their gift, that maybe they haven't been blessed with a family that gave them the support they needed. But if they can find that, whether you want to call it a family or a friendship, I had once seen a greeting card that said, friends are God's gift for, or friends are God's apology for family. And I found that to be a rather humorous statement and a true statement at the same time, because some of us were born into a family that didn't match our energy and didn't give us the support that we needed. But we found that support in friendships around us, in business associates around us. And so that to me, family can be all sorts of things that is not necessarily birthed, but you birth the family in a new and different way. And when you do that, when you surround yourself, having lived frequently hundreds and thousands of miles away from my birth family, I needed to create family. So I would invite people to my house for the holidays when they had no family to go spend it with. I would I can remember having a card table and still having that was my dining table, a little fold out card table. I still had people come over to my house to play games, to have conversation. You made it less about the environment having the ideal furniture and stuff to commune around, and more about the fact that you were inviting them in to be part of the community of people you were willing to be with, so that you could create those great synergies of how to work and how to live together. And people would say, wow, I just had the best time doing da 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 da. And somebody says, they did this at your apartment, or that, you invited them into your, well, weren't you worried about what they were going to say? And it's like, listen, if they're going to judge how I live, they are not part of my community to begin with. We need to address how we are accepting the fact that we have to live up to an expectation of someone else's thoughts of what we need to be acceptable. Because I have sometimes learned from those who have the least, because they have figured out how to create this synergy of themselves and how they have managed to take steps forward when the rest of us would have cocooned up and said, woe is me. Those people that sometimes look like they have the least to give to you have the most to give to you. And because you are unwilling to unlock that connection, to unlock that conversation, and talk to somebody. I've at various times had people say, well, I'm not going to do business with them because I don't like their political view or I don't like their stand on this one issue. And my question to them is, how do you ever expect to engage people to understand why you believe what you believe if you're not willing to find out why they believe what they believe? Maybe there's something that you can find in a commonality between the two of you that allows you both to work together and do things to create an environment that you're both happy in. But it cannot happen if you are not willing to have the conversations. It's to me truly that being open to hear how someone got to their point of view. What information are they looking at that you don't have access to? And what information do you have access to that they aren't looking at? Sometimes it's like everybody goes, oh, wait a minute. We are this close together and we're looking at it from this far apart.
So powerful, Susan. What you are bringing to the world with humanitarianism is just amazing. And I see so many commonalities because it's a question of who I am and who do I want to become and bring that into this future, into my here and now. So I think we have to find some ways of how we can work together in that regard. There is
Absolutely.
one, yeah, there is one last question I would like to close with, is if there is one awareness shift you wish every leader would make starting tomorrow, what would it be?
I think it is to find those moments where you're willing to step back to reanalyze where things are at in a moment instead of push forward assuming you have all the answers right now. We've always done it this way to me is a really tough thing. And the other one that's really tough is there's something new, we all need to do it now. Both of those to me are problematic. We need to slow down in order to move forward faster. And that slowing down may seem like a step backwards, but really it is an opportunity to open up your vision to take in everything that needs to be done. Because frequently what I have seen, and and it probably goes back to that whole thing of building and construction and stuff. If you don't create a solid foundation underneath you, what you build will crumble. And so many businesses get this, whether they call it a bright idea or a new concept, and they run with it before they find out who does it really serve, if it really serves, and what needs to be thought about in a different way. There is no straight line in this. But if you learn from every step what worked and didn't work, it's a whole different thing. So I would say slow down to go fast.
Absolutely, totally agree. Thank you so much for these closing words. And that brings me to our last exercise for today in this episode. I'd like to end it with a fun rapid fire session. I'm throwing out some terms
Okay.
and you, okay? All right then. Ready? Mindset.
Mindset is frequently the first piece you have to challenge. It's
Does
ready to
mean
go, or is it holding you back? Yeah.
Mhm. What does success mean to you?
For me, it's completely different than others. It is never money first. It is having a environment that gives me a feeling of comfort, but also opportunities that allow me to feel challenged to move forward. I I I am not somebody who necessarily moves fast, but I'm also not somebody who's like, I've got it and nothing needs to change. I need that yin yang of some things moving faster and some things as a spot to retreat to and be cozy in. Yeah, I need them both.
That's beautiful. That's the way how to grow. You're living growth mindset. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
You're really embodying it. Leadership.
Leadership starts with yourself. And so many people think it's only at the top. And I have been in environments where what was at the top wasn't a leader, but a dictator. And what was at the top was somebody who had been in, in placed by someone who they had followed, but was incapable of really leading. And it was the team around them that did all the work and created the synergy that created the leadership. So I have seen leadership sometimes from the bottom up, from the middle out, and from the top down. So leadership is how are you lifting yourself and lifting the others around you?
And last but not least, brands. What is a brand to you? What does it mean?
Brand is how you show up. It is how you create that image that when you leave the room, people know you were in the room. It's I can have people give me a gift and they were like, I saw this and I knew this was you because you have truly shown them who you are. And it does, it comes back to who you are. And having my experience in retail is you were creating the brand environment for a department store so that you wanted an identity for that division of a retailer to stand out and in its uniqueness. But then you had brands that were housed within it, and each of them had to stand in their identity so that their product shined as separate from the products sitting next to it. So we were creating those shops. So I lived branding on a daily basis and I lived branding in that work experience. And at first I think for a lot of people they just think it's the logo or the name or whatever and they forget that it really is how does that make you feel? It does come back to an emotional connection. You either connect with a brand because it like makes you feel cool, or you connect with it because of what it does for the world. It is still a feeling that you are receiving. And you may be feeling that through more logic. You may be feeling that more through security. And that's where with like bank, and I'm looking at it, B for the security, the minimal risk, A for action, for the ideal, getting to shine and be bold, N for that nurturing that gives you the heart and the caring, and K for the knowledge that's like just always thinking and seeing big picture stuff, but also seeing details that the rest of us are like, oh, I missed that. But to me, all of those pieces come into every brand, but they come in different ways. And brand is so, so much identity of who, what, and the environment that we're in.
It's, as you say, it's not just what we feel for us, but it's if it's something that we create for that is more than ourselves, that affects other
Yeah,
people. And that makes it so big. And this is so
yeah.
powerful, full of energy and love and passion and everything that I can think of. Thank you. You just, yeah, described it so perfectly. Thank you so much, Susan. Ah,
I
okay,
love
but
you, my
now
dear.
I love you too. I'm so glad we are here for each other and having these conversations. And I'm always like, yeah, so much more in tune and aligned when I leave a call with you like today. And this time it's for the rest
Thank you.
of the world. It's not just for us, it's for everyone else listening. So Susan, where can listeners find you?
The easiest thing is if you look on like LinkedIn, or if you even, whatever you're doing anymore, if it's a Google, if it's an AI search, if you just put in Susan K. Younger, you will find me. And I think that is one of those branding choices I made early in life without even recognizing it, my dear. I My last name being Younger, my initials being SKY. I was like, I'm never giving them up. And people would say, "Oh no, when you get married, you'll change your name." And I'm like, I don't think so. And I didn't. And uh, I have used both the SKY, the sky piece of it, for different things I've done, and my full name, because it's who I am, regardless of what position I have, what role I play within an organization, what consulting I do to an organization, or how I show up in life. It's still me. It's still me.
Thank you. I'm so
So
glad
you
it's
can
you.
find me on LinkedIn as Susan K. Younger, and you can just find me.
Okay, so I'm
Yeah,
gonna put everything in the show notes.
you'll find me.
All right, Susan, thank you so much for
All right.
being my
I love
guest
you.
today.
Thank you for this
Thank you
time.
so much for that conversation. It was just
Oh,
incredible.
beautiful start to my day.
Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this episode, hit follow on your favorite app, share it with your network, and leave a quick review. Stay tuned for the next episode and keep shining.